Hi everyone, my name is Haley and welcome back or welcome to my channel. It has been a couple of weeks since I have uploaded a video. This past month has been really busy for me. Every weekend that I had time to film, because I usually film on the weekends, was full of other activities, so I wasn't able to get anything up these past couple of weeks. But for today's video, I wanted to do my April reading wrap-up. I actually read 12 books in April, which was a lot more than I thought it was. I'm just going to go through those with you now, and yeah, let's get into it. Excuse my nails. I picked off the nail polish, but obviously I didn't get very far on this hand, and I broke a nail, so we're just gonna pretend like that didn't happen. I would say that April was an okay reading month. I did read some books that I really didn't vibe with that much, and in my reading experience that hasn't really happened a lot because I tend to choose books that I know I'll like, but I've been trying to expand my reading tastes to see if I would enjoy other stuff, and sometimes they're hits and sometimes they're misses, and there were a couple of misses this month. And then I also have a video planned where I go into detail of sports romance books and rate them, so I do have a clump of sports romances from this month that I won't go into too much detail on because I do have a video planned for them. But yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it. So the first book I read in April was The Project by Courtney Summers, and if there's one thing that this book did well, it was the cover. I mean, this is a very stunning book, but I gave this a 2.5 star, and I think that might be the lowest I've ever rated. Or actually no, I'm pretty sure Wilder Girls is lower than this, but this is one of my lowest rated books. So let me go ahead and tell you what it's about. So The Project follows our main character Lo, and she was in a really bad car accident with her parents, and her parents ended up passing away. And while she was in recovery, her older sister B went to go join this church called the Unity Project, and she hasn't really been in contact with B since then. I think it's been like 6 years, and now Lo works at a media outlet, and she decides to take on this project of finding out that the Unity Project is really a cult and is responsible for the murder of this man's son that, you know, is entangled in this story. So her main goal is to go and find B and infiltrate the Unity Project and really figure out what's going on. I really just didn't gel with this. I don't know if it's because I am not super religious, and so reading about a church setting and preaching and everything like that kind of, it doesn't make me uncomfortable, but I really can't connect with it because I don't practice that in my own life. And I feel like it can be done well, but in this instance it wasn't. It just, I don't know, I didn't really like that aspect of it. Let me go to my review on Goodreads. One thing I did like about it is how it showed the cult aspect of this society and how easy it is to get sucked into it, and kind of how easy it is to be brainwashed. And I also felt like Lo was so headstrong and like, this is a cult, I'm going to go and I'm gonna uncover it and I'm gonna tell the truth, but her mind changed so quickly when she was in it. And I know that can also be an aspect of getting sucked in and brainwashed, but because she was so adamant about it being one thing and uncovering the truth, to when she goes, she switches. Like, it happened too fast without enough reason, I think. I think the author just wanted to be like, oh, our main character is now part of the Unity Church or the Unity Project, and she's sucked into it, but it just was unrealistic in how fast it happened. And I feel like if I didn't listen to this, I probably would have DNF'd it. So yeah, 2.5 for this. And so the next book I read in April was Hating the Player by Rebecca Genshak, and it is the second book in the Campus Wallflowers series. I'm not gonna go into detail about any of the sports romance in this because I have the other video coming out, but I will tell you what it is about. It's about this girl named Violet and this guy named Gavin. They had a fling, it ended badly, and now they hate each other. So it is like an enemies to lovers second chance romance thing that we got going on, and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And the next book I read was Alex by Sawyer Bennett, I believe. Yes, this is the Cold Fury Hockey #1. I gave it 3 stars. So this follows a girl named Sutton, and she's a social worker, and she mainly focuses on drug abuse and Alex is a hockey player, and to boost his public image, his coach makes him volunteer at Sutton's work to work on a campaign together to spread awareness of at-risk youth and drug abuse and stuff like that. And it is a romance. I gave it 3 stars, and that's all I have to say about that. And then next, to keep following the theme, I read First Score by Lissa Lemire. I think I'm saying that right. This is Hot Shots #1. It is another hockey romance. Hockey romance is my favorite type of sports romance, so that is why you see a lot of it here. And this book follows our main character named Kay and the love interest Blaze. She wants to lose her virginity because she is like a super genius, and she is a senior in college but is 18 and hasn't, you know, experienced any sexual relationship, and so she wants to lose her virginity and enlists the help of Blaze to assist her in that aspect of her life. I gave this 3 stars, and yeah, let's move on. This next book will be the last sports romance that I talk about in this wrap-up, and then we can get back into going in depth with my thoughts about the other books. So the next book I read was Bad Boys Break Hearts by Michaela Smeltzer, I think? Michaela Smeltzer? So this book follows Rory, or Aurora, and Mason. They were childhood best friends, but something happens where they lose contact, and now Rory shows up at the same college that Mason attends, not knowing that he goes there, and they become entwined in each other's lives once again. Bad boy, good girl trope. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Moving on from sports romance, the next book I read in April was Arch Conspirator by Veronica Roth. This is actually the first Veronica Roth book I've read. I never read the Divergent series. I was a Hunger Games girly, so didn't ever get into those. But this was a very short book as well. I think the audiobook was only like 3 or 4 hours. I gave this a 3 star. So Arch Conspirator is a loose retelling of Antigone, except it is science fiction. And if you are not familiar with the story of Antigone, it is basically about Antigone, who tries to bury the body of her brother secretly against her uncle's wishes, and also wants to pursue a relationship with her brother. Very interesting dynamics we have going on here. But in Arch Conspirator, it follows Antigone, and her parents were murdered in like a raid or something like that, and so her uncle Creon becomes the new king, or like the new guardian of her and her siblings. But then something happens and her brother gets killed, and so she wants to go give him a proper burial, or not even a proper burial. She wants to go and steal his like memory core, because in this society you can be reincarnated if you have like your memory core. It can be placed into a new person, I think. And also trying to pursue a relationship with her, I think it might be her cousin in this. I honestly can't remember. It's so short that I can't really say anything without spoiling it, and if you know the original story you would also know how it goes. I thought this was a really interesting way to learn about these older like Greek tragedies, and I do like the sci-fi spin. I think a big reason why people don't like to read these Greek tragedies is because they are not so palatable and it's hard to get through sometimes. So breaking it down into a genre that is more easily accessible I think is really smart. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. I do think that this book tried to bring up a lot of important topics, but it was really short that it didn't really give itself the room to expand on them. Bodily autonomy was brought up, and what it's like to be a woman in today's environment. Interesting family dynamics, but again, the book was so short that it kind of just did surface level analysis of these issues and didn't really breach any deeper. And I feel like if you're gonna write a book and have those topics in it, you have to do it justice, or else it's not gonna work. So I do wish that that was explored a little bit more in this book. So I would say if you're looking for an Antigone retelling that kind of gets the story across point blank period and is short, go for this. But if you are looking for a sci-fi book and this isn't your first rodeo and you want, you know, something new to read, I would say try to find something else. It's just not that sci-fi heavy. It's really only the setting that makes it science fiction and like I guess some of the technology, but it's not like a high sci-fi. So I gave this 3 stars. Okay, I lied. There is one more sports romance I totally forgot forgot about it, but I read Mile High by Liz Tomford, and I gave this 4 stars. Basically, it is about this girl named Stevie, and she is a flight attendant for this professional hockey team, and the love interest is named Evan Zanders. Obviously, they can't have a relationship because she works for him, but he is, you know, enamored with her, and I guess we see what happens and if they go for it and everything like that. I gave it 4 stars. Again, not going into detail about this yet, but keep an eye out for my video where I do talk about all the sports romance I have read. Okay, I don't know if this is gonna be controversial or not, but the next book I read was Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I gave this a 3 star, but I might bump it down to like a 2.5 or a 2.75. I say it's controversial because this book has a 4.14 average rating on Goodreads, and I just want to know, is the book in the room with us? Are we reading the same book? I also listened to this on audio, and I honestly don't like when an audiobook is not as good as like a physical book, because I feel like if you're having a format to be ingested, it has to be as good as the physical book. So I don't want people to be like, oh, well, you should have read the physical copy, the audiobook's not good. I feel like you should be able to judge a book based on the audiobook or the physical book or whatever it is and have the same experience like across the board, I guess. But I just really did not like this, and I was really disappointed because I love Marvel, I love superheroes, but maybe it's just because if it's not like a comic book, it doesn't work for me. I don't know. I was really struggling to get through the first 50% of this book. I was texting my friend about it, and I was like, imagine Lazy Town TV set, okay, are you with me? And then instead of like all the characters in Lazy Town, you replace it with Mineta from My Hero Academia, you know, like the small one with like the purple balls all over himself. That's what I imagined reading this book, was just the TV set of Lazy Town and 100 Minetas running around fighting crime. And it was just so cringy at times. Like the names, you have someone who's superpower is drawing and you name him Sketch, and this person who can bring out your biggest fears, you name them Phobia. I mean, come on, you had so many opportunities to make it better. Like, I don't know, but maybe it's just because saying it out loud and seeing it on screen makes it less cringy than reading it. I think that might be a big part of it. But I honestly didn't start really enjoying, and I wouldn't say enjoying, this book didn't really get tolerable until after the 50% mark, and that is way too long to start being interested in a book. But I did have this whole series on my shelf, so I wanted to finish it, like the first book, to see if it's worth continuing, and I am here to tell you that no, it is not. I'm just gonna read my review to you because there's a lot that I had to say. I also just felt like this book was so long for no reason. I feel like there were only 2 big plot points and it could have been half the length, and even though Nova and Adrian are trying to conceal their identities, I felt no anxiety or nervousness for them because they really didn't seem to care. They're both supposed to be the really good guy and the really bad girl, but they're not as extreme as their characters should be. They both just felt underdeveloped, and I didn't believe one was the poster child for justice and the other for anarchy. Yeah, I really, like, the whole idea is that they are both keeping their identities a secret, but it doesn't take a genius to know who's who. They really didn't seem to care. Like, the book wanted things to be really high stakes, but it wasn't. I have no attachment to these characters whatsoever, or like what happens to them. And then I said, my last gripe I'm going to share for now is the puppeteer. Maybe because I listened to it on audio, but oh my god, the most insufferable character to listen to. Props to the voice actors for committing, because I would have walked out of the recording booth. This is all enough for me to not read the rest of the series and look up spoilers on Google. I mean, like I said, the narrator did enhance the experience of listening to this because he played the puppeteer voice so well, but that also made it worse for me. So all in all, 2.75. Will not be continuing this series. The next book I read in April was Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. Hello? I gave this book 4 stars. Let me tell you what it's about. So our book follows our main character, Maya, and her father is a tailor. She is also a tailor, but in this time period, in this environment, women are not seen as master tailors. So it's not really something that she can pursue on her own. It's only because her father is one that she's able to do it as well. Her brothers get sent off to war. 2 of them unfortunately do not come back, and one of them comes back with a broken leg. And so after he's back the emperor goes across the country, I guess, and brings in 12 master tailors because he's looking for a tailor for him to be the new emperor's tailor. And so Maya, she doesn't want her dad to go because he has been mourning the loss of his whole family and he would not be able to, you know, really do his best work. And her brother can't go because he can't walk and he's not really good at sewing anyway. Like, Maya is a phenomenal sewer, seamstress, not sewer, seamstress. And so she pretends to be her brother and go as him. So it's like Mulan, basically. And halfway through the book, she is tasked with making a dress from the sun, the moon, and the stars. And so it takes a whole new spin, and it's like a journey that she goes on with the emperor's magician. And his name is Eden, and, you know, there's a little bit of a romance there. Like I said, I gave this 4 stars, and I also listened to this on audio, and I will be looking at my Goodreads review once again to tell you my thoughts about it. I love the mythology behind the story and really enjoyed the different settings we were in. If I'm being honest, it kind of felt like a Genshin Quest as I was reading it, and I love that game. That is true. I was imagining, you know, like my characters running through the forest and, you know, making camp and cooking and fighting bad guys and everything like that. One thing I really liked was that Maya never did the things that usual YA protagonists do. When she was faced with the choice to not tell Eden that she was asked to spy on him, I thought, oh great, now she's going to lie to him and it's going to become a huge conflict later. But she actually told him the truth, which I was really surprised about. I was fully expecting her to not make the correct choices and have it come up later and be the source of conflict, and I was really happy when that didn't happen, because sometimes I feel like that's just an easy way out for authors and it requires them not to really think about other conflicts that could happen. So I really liked that that was not the case with this book. And then I said I loved Eden and Maya together. Some of their moments made me tear up. I don't know what to expect for the sequel, but I'm scared. Eden and Maya need to come back together at the end of this duology because I don't think my heart could handle it if they didn't. So 4 out of 5 stars for this one. The next book I read was The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I keep messing up the title of that book. This was another one I was really excited about because I've seen it get really good reviews. It's either like a 5-star or a 1-star, and there's really not that many 1-star ratings of it. But I ended up giving it a 3.75 star, which is still really good. I was just kind of surprised that it wasn't higher. But basically, this book follows our main character, Araya, and she is a human living in the world of vampires because her foster father is like the king of vampires, and he found her when she was younger and brought her back and, you know, has raised her to be a warrior and everything like that. And every 100 years, I think, there is a tournament called the Kahari, I believe. I don't know. And anyone can enter, and it's like a fight to the death. There's only one champion, there's a bunch of trials, and whoever wins can ask the goddess of the vampires for one wish. So her foster father says that she should join, and if she wins she can wish to become his like soul bond, and it would turn her into a vampire without the risk of her dying, and she would share his power. So that's like the whole plot, is her going into this tournament and wanting to win to wish for this one thing. And this is probably going to be spoilers too from this point on, but throughout the tournament she encounters Rain, and he is a vampire, but he has like more humanity than she does. He has really held on to that since he was turned, and so like they create a connection because he's not like all the other vampires when it comes to being around humans, and he is her love interest. And so that's basically the whole plot. Let me read you my review. I really enjoyed this book, but I didn't find it as gripping as I wanted it to be. I'm a sucker for anything that is tournament based, and I love romance, but I found both aspects of this book to be a little flat. I think a big part why the romance didn't really do it for me is because a lot of it was left unsaid. Yes, a lot of time passed during the trial, giving Rain and Araya time to get close, but we as the reader didn't really see it. All we saw was them becoming allies and then a small confession here and there. I didn't really believe that they were in love until the end when Araya had to kill Rain. That was heart-wrenching. The tournament lasts for like 3 months, and obviously the book is not going to take you through every day of the tournament, and since Araya and Rain were allies and they were living together in the Moon Palace where the tournament was taking place, there was a lot of time for them to get to know each other. But I feel like the author didn't like show how much has progressed with them. It would just be happening, and it'd feel like it came out of nowhere because there was no like lead up in the part of the books that were written I don't know if that makes sense. Like, the parts of the tournament when they weren't fighting that were written in the book didn't take the time to show how they had grown closer. It kind of just said, this is happening now. It didn't say this has happened and I feel this way because this happened that wasn't written. I don't know if any of that is making sense, but I feel like there's probably 50 pages that didn't make it into the book that could have been used to really build up the romance more in different parts of the book. So I feel like that's why I didn't enjoy the romance as much as I could have, because it felt not forced, but it didn't feel as natural as it could have. When she had to kill him though, because I knew it was coming, I was like, oh my god, like I really felt that she loved him at that moment. But it shouldn't take someone killing someone for me to feel their romance, you know what I mean? I love that we're getting a new vampire fantasy series, but I also found this to fall a bit flat in the fantasy. I don't know, we're in the trial for the whole book, but I feel like it wasn't explored as much as it could have been. It was all fighting demons, but I wish there was a bit more. Yeah, I feel like the trials could have been, I don't know. I feel like everything was just condensed. Like, it was still a long book, but I feel like the romance, maybe stuff was cut out, and for the trials, maybe stuff was cut out, because the structure is there, and like the main points are there, and the important parts are there, but it feels like it's missing something. So I don't know if that's just me. And then I said I think the sequel might be more my speed because the first one was definitely setting up for a lot. I also didn't feel betrayed or surprised at the twist at the end, which is a big indicator that I wasn't totally enthralled in the book. Either way, I think this is a great intro to fantasy romance because it's not too heavy on either genre and is a good middle ground for those exploring these types of books. I do see how much Rain cares for Araya. I just hope we get to see more of her caring for him in the next book. I read her words of love, I just didn't feel them. That basically sums up anything I had to say about this book. Really looking forward to the sequel because it's like forced proximity and being with someone you thought you knew but you don't really know. But yeah, also the plot twist at the end, you could tell because he was hiding so much stuff from her and like he didn't like to talk about his past. There was obviously something that he wasn't telling her, so I really wasn't surprised. But I also think I am a hard person to surprise with like plot twists, and I've said that before and I will keep saying it until there's a book that I didn't see coming. 3.75 stars for The Serpent and the Wings of Night. The next book I read in April was The Ivies by Alexa Dawn, and I gave this a 3.75 stars again. I've been in my YA mystery thriller era. I never really read a lot of it because I mainly stick to YA fantasy and science fiction, but I really enjoy YA mystery thrillers, and so I'm trying to read a lot more of them. And The Ivies has been on my radar for a long time, so I was really happy to finally get around to it. And just this cover is amazing. I love this cover so much. The Ivies is about this group of girls. There's 5 of them and they're all like best friends at this prestigious boarding school, and they are called the Ivies because they basically like sabotage other students from getting into their dream schools or their dream Ivy League schools, and people brand them the Ivies because they know that like maybe they switch your classes around or make you fail a test or something just so that they can secure a spot in the Ivy League school that they want to go to. So our main character is Olivia. She is a scholarship student. She doesn't really feel like she totally fits in with the Ivies, but they are her best shot at getting into an Ivy League. But in the beginning of the book, one of the Ivies named Emma winds up dead, and so now everyone is trying to figure out who would have killed her, because the night before, or a few hours before she was killed, Emma had told one of the Ivies named Avery that she got into Harvard. And Avery would assign each Ivy a school that they had to apply to, and Avery was applying to Harvard and she was the only one. And so when Emma told her, Avery was like super upset because Avery didn't get in, and so Emma took her spot basically. They got in a huge fight and then Emma winds up dead. So it all is a huge investigation. You really don't know who you can trust because all of the Ivies have done some shady stuff to guarantee a spot at their dream school. This is going to be a spoiler about who did it. I really enjoy books where the reason for something so heinous is just so outrageous that it also seems like it could happen. So the killer is Tyler, and Tyler was Emma's boyfriend and is also Avery's stepbrother. He goes into this whole rant about how he is so upset that him as a rich white male is not getting accepted into the schools that he wants because he's being, you know, discriminated against for being a rich white male. And so you can see how like people would actually act that way in our society, especially rich white men, would do something like that and complain. And so he kills her to have a sob story to write in his college essay because he has no other like hardships. And that's insane, but it also is like something that I feel like someone like that would do. You know what I mean? I really like plot points like that. It kind of reminds me of this movie called The Hunt. This is a spoiler for that too. I'm sorry, this is a whole spoiler vlog. Not vlog. Video. But The Hunt is basically about these rich friends who kidnap 12 people who have talked shit about them online and hunt them for sport. But at the end of the movie, it's revealed that they had never done it before. It was just a joke that they were texting about that got leaked online and caused them all to lose their jobs. And so that in turn caused them to actually do it. It's like the stupidest shit and like the stupidest reasons that rich people have to do these things. But at the same time, you're like, I could totally see that happening, which is also kind of concerning. All in all, I gave the Ivies 3.75 stars. Let me see what I said on my Goodreads review. I had a ton of fun reading this, and I did like the misdirects we got and subtle actions of suspects that would make you believe it's them versus the actual killer. Avery gave me major Leighton vibes from Sex Lives of College Girls, and I love that show so much. I do wish we got a little bit more of Sierra and Margot, as they were part of the core friend group but ultimately felt like flat characters, and I wish that the cutting of the security cameras and that reveal was a little more intense, but other than that I had a great time. Okay, I have one more book from April, and that is 5 Total Strangers by Natalie D. Richards. This is also another YA mystery thriller. It follows our main character named Mira, and she is on this flight going home for Christmas, and she becomes friends with the girl next to her, and they land, and it turns out all the flights are canceled, and so she can't make her connecting flight to get home for Christmas. And so Harper, who is the girl she met on the plane, says, oh, me and my friends are gonna rent a car and drive to where we need to go. One of them is close to you. We can drop you off on the way. If you want to come, just let me know. At first, Mira is not totally stoked on the idea and tries to find a different flight to catch, but everything is canceled because of this huge storm, and so she runs into Harper again and decides to take her up on the offer. As she's in the car and with these people, she starts to get really weird vibes from all of them and realize that Harper met them all at the airport as well, and so she doesn't really know how well Harper knows them, and she doesn't know them at all, and so she starts to get really creeped out and some weird vibes because she's in a car with a bunch of strangers. Throughout the book, there's also these chapters about letters that are written, and you can tell that they are written to Mira, but we don't know who's writing them, but they're very stalkery. As they are being put into the book, you can start to piece together that someone has been following her, and someone in that car is obsessed with her and wants to be with her and will stop at nothing to achieve that goal. Things keep happening. They keep getting a broken down car, having these mishaps that stops them from getting to where they need to go. And here is my review. I gave it 3.5 stars, and I said, I think the synopsis for this is so fun. 5 strangers getting into a car because their flights got canceled and embarking on a road trip, but one of them is lying about who they really are. I think the premise has so much promise, but I feel like it fell a little bit flat, maybe because it's YA. It didn't take it to all the darker places it could have gone, which I do wish it went a little bit further. I just found myself wanting more from the idea because there's so much that could have happened. I thought the bad person in this book was really predictable, especially because the author tries to steer you clear of it a lot. I don't like when books try to point fingers at the culprit so much because it's almost always never the case. Either way, a fun, fast-paced, scary YA thriller. Like when books and movies try so hard to be like, oh, it's this person that did it. Look at all the things that they've done. And it's like not even the end. You know that it's a misdirect most of the time. So I do wish that it wasn't like so focused on one person and still had you guessing, because it is kind of obvious at that point. Those were all of the books I read in April. I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry if my synopsis and my analysis gets scrambled. I just start saying one thing and then remember that I want to talk about something else and then just jumble it all together. So I hope you can still understand what I'm trying to say. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. Let me know what books you read in April, what your favorite book was, what your least favorite book was, if you found a new genre, anything about your April reading habits. Comment it down below. I would love to know. I hope you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!